Hello, everyone, and welcome. I do see something in the chat of how do I sign in. You should be able to see the shared screen. So let me know if you can't. We're excited to have everyone on this webinar on cultivating health, growing, and enjoying nutritious food. And we're going to get started. My name is Mary Lizakowski, and I'm a Coalition Health Director with Foundation for a Healthy North Dakota. We are a nonprofit organization established in 2022 with a mission to promote health and wellness across North Dakota by working at the community level. We continue to expand our statewide coalition to foster collaboration among local communities on common initiatives. By becoming a member of the coalition, you'll be the first to receive information about educational opportunities like this one, updates on relevant public health information, legislative news, as well as access to digital advocacy resources and toolkits. So just a few housekeeping things to cover. Webinar attendees will be automatically muted for the presentation. And after the presentation, a link to the recording will be sent out along with an evaluation survey to complete. And if you do have any questions, go ahead and put them in the chat box and we will address them after the presentation. It is my pleasure to introduce our presenter today, Dr. Julie Garden-Robinson. She is a food and nutrition specialist for NDSU Extension. She is a registered dietitian and food scientist. She does research and outreach in many aspects of nutrition, food, safety, and health, supporting most of her work through grants. Julie is a former president of the National Extension Association of Family and Consumer Sciences, and she currently leads a 12-state regional collaborative on food safety and nutrition. She has written a weekly nutrition column, Prairie Fare, since 1997. So welcome, and I will turn it over to you.
I will get can you see my screen?
I sure can.
All right. Well, it's my pleasure to be with you today. I hope I give you some, quote, food for thought as we go through the slides that I put together. I also consciously thought about some things that you could use as follow-up. We have a couple of online classes that are free that you can certainly take in your leisure. So let's get started. I want to answer the questions. How does the food you eat affect your health? And can you grow it and preserve it? So we're going to go through a little bit on fruits and vegetables in the diet. And why do those of us in the nutrition field always tell you to eat more fruits and vegetables? We'll talk about some gardening tips in sometimes I have some time for hobbies. I am a master gardener, and I encourage those of you who really like to garden to think about applying to be in the Master Gardener program. It is offered through NDSU Extension, and they have a second level Master Gardener as well. So my background isn't in horticulture per se, but my last name originally was Garden, so I get asked a lot of horticulture questions. We'll talk a bit about preserving fruits and vegetables, and I do have lots of resources. So this is a perfect time to schedule this webinar because it is National Nutrition Month. And that's been celebrated for many, many years. It's supported by the Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics, which is the national group for registered dietitians. And as I go through some information today, I'd like you to set a goal for after this session. What is one specific thing that you would be willing to do? And it has to be specific. I'm going to eat healthier. What does that mean? I'm going to have a vegetable for a snack every day, starting tomorrow or today. So that would be a specific goal. And you also want those to be time bound. So we call them SMART goals. So I want you to pause for a second. Most of us just ate our lunch, probably, or maybe you're eating your lunch right now. How many fruits and vegetables have you eaten today? Let's think back to breakfast. Maybe you had a mid-morning snack break and lunch. How many fruits and vegetables? And if you can put it in terms of cups, that would be even better. And you can include dry edible beans like navy beans, kidney beans. All those beans can count as a vegetable or as a protein. But for now, we're going to count them as vegetables. So think about that. Have you had any? I just had my leftovers, garlic mashed potatoes, and some broccoli. So I'm doing pretty good right now. So here's how to count fruits and vegetables. 1 cup of raw or cooked vegetables or vegetable juice, or 2 cups of raw leafy greens, like dark green spinach salad, for example. Each of those amounts would count as 1 cup from the vegetable group. So you can count juice, but you want to make sure that if you're counting juice for a fruit or a vegetable, that it's 100% fruit or vegetable juice and not basically like sugar water with a little flavoring. So make sure you're having 100% juice, but even better, go for the whole fruit or the whole vegetable because those will have more fiber and actually some of the phytonutrients that are so good for us. So I kind of gave you a clue. Why should we eat fruits and vegetables anyway? Well, they provide a lot of different vitamins, especially vitamins A and C. And vitamin A actually comes from the dark gold or dark orange color. Our body takes those carotenoid pigments, so it makes them orange, like carrots, and converts that to vitamin A. We need vitamin A for healthy skin, healthy eyes, and vitamin C is the other vitamin that's particularly found in fruits and vegetables. We need a source of vitamin C every day. You might have noticed on a lot of nutrition, well, actually on all nutrition labels, vitamins A and C are no longer listed. Instead, we have potassium and we have vitamin D. The reason was because vitamin D is especially important, and most people don't get enough vitamin D. You don't get vitamin D from fruits and vegetables, unfortunately, but you can get vitamin D from fortified cereal and milk and certain, well, eggs and certain types of fish. But when we go back to fruits and vegetables, vitamins A and C are found in abundance. Minerals like potassium are high in fruits and vegetables. And why do we need potassium? We need potassium to keep our blood pressure regulated. Potassium is needed for all of those muscles and nerves throughout our body. Fruits and vegetables also are an excellent source of fiber, and fiber can help prevent cancer, at least to some degree, and also keeps us regular, so we feel good, and our digestive system remains healthy. Phytochemicals, and most of us have now heard this word because it's become pretty popular in usage. It wasn't around when I was first starting out as a food and nutrition specialist. Most people had never heard of that. Phyto just means plant chemicals. These are natural plant chemicals and they have antioxidant effects. These are the boxing gloves within us that fight harmful chemicals and other environmental influences that can promote chronic disease. So it's a good thing to add more fruits and vegetables. And now you know how you're doing so far today, I hope. Some of the other reasons for eating plenty of fruits and vegetables is that besides cancer, a diet high in fruits and vegetables can reduce our risk for diabetes, heart disease, even keeping a healthy weight. So if I could suggest a goal, if you're not getting the amount that I'm going to tell you shortly, I would suggest trying to aim for more fruits and vegetables. But wait, there's more. Fruits and vegetables also support our muscles, our immune system, our bones, our joints, our eyes, our skin, our digestive system, and our teeth. So there are the nutrients within fruits and vegetables act throughout the body. And you might say, well, I take a vitamin. I take a multivitamin, multimineral. Well, that's okay. That's certainly okay, but it's not going to replace healthy food. There are certain things that we don't even know about in the world of science that maybe we haven't isolated that particular chemical. And also, I will add that not every supplement contains what it says it contains. So you always want to, if you like to take a supplement, be sure to buy a good brand and do your research on it. But even better, food is good. It tastes good. It smells good. It looks good. And it's also good for you. So I hope that everyone has seen this. It's been around for many years, probably at least 10 years, if not more. This is my plate. This is from myplate.gov. And this figure or icon represents the approximate amounts that should be on your plate on most meals. And it's all color coded. So you can see how much of my plate should be covered with colorful fruits and vegetables. The answer is half. Grains, a little over 1/4. Protein, which could be animal-based or vegetable-based, a little less than 1/4. And then dairy or a calcium source. They're all, as I said, they're all color-coded. So, green and red are the colors of the fruit and vegetable group. The other thing that changed, in case you remember, from many years ago now, we used to have my pyramid, and we've had other food guide pyramids and so on, but this one seems to be hanging in there. People, this resonates with them. They can understand this one better than a triangle. So this is a plate, and this is pretty close to what the recommendations are. So think about half your plate, and I'll just add, even though I'm talking more about fruits and vegetables today, but within the grain group, we do recommend that about half of your grains, or at least half, should be whole grains. So we want the bread, for example, or cereal to be whole grain because that contains all parts of the grain kernel. And of course, in North Dakota, Minnesota, this area, we grow a lot of the grain products. We also grow a lot of the beans. So we can be very proud of all the agriculture that goes on around us. Okay, here's what you're waiting for. How much should you eat every day of vegetables? And usually we're telling people, cut down a little, eat a little less. Here I'm going to say eat a little more. The recommendations for women would be 2 to 2.5 cups, depending on age. For men, 2.5 to 3 cups, depending on age. So think about that, and that could also be a goal. I always tell people, though, if you're not eating any vegetables at all or any fruits, you want to start slow. Don't just overwhelm your body with a whole bunch of fruits and vegetables in one day, because that can also cause some digestive upset. So just aim to increase it a bit. But in general, I don't know how old anyone is on this call, but 2 to 2.5 cups is pretty common also for children and teens. How about fruits? 1.5 to 2 cups. So find your age, find the amount, and for men, 2 cups all across, all the way from 19 and up. And again, try to go with the whole fruits and eat the skin whenever possible. Because did you know that, let's say you have an apple. That apple is colored by a natural pigment called anthocyanins, natural red, if it's a red apple. And directly under that peel is a lot of the phytochemical source. So try, if you're going to peel, just peel lightly, but a lot of the fiber is right there in the peeling, and also some of the nutrients are directly under the peel. So scrub them well. There's no real reason to peel. No real reason to use some special soap. Don't use soap at all. Just use plenty of running water. So within the categories of my plate, we can put them into several color groupings. So we have it's been very popular through the years. We have a couple publications about adding more color to your diet. And we have a lot of recipes, tons of recipes to help you put this into action on our NDSU Extension food nutrition website. So we can divide, here's a couple of categories, dark green, red and orange. What counts? It's all fresh, frozen, and canned, dark green leafy vegetables, broccoli, cooked or raw, spinach, romaine, collards, turnips, anything dark green. Dark green is going to be more healthy than, say, iceberg lettuce. If you're using iceberg lettuce, that's fine. It's not going to hurt you, but is it really providing very many nutrients? The answer is no. Red and orange, add more red and orange to your diet. I mentioned anthocyanins in red apples, but we also have the opportunity, hopefully soon, to start growing some red or orange colored fruits and vegetables like peppers and tomatoes. The red peppers are also colored by those same pigments, anthocyanins. The tomatoes are colored by something called lycopene. And lycopene has been shown to fight different types of cancer, particularly prostate cancer in men. There's a lot of research on it. So we all should be eating more tomatoes. That's a good thing. If you like salsa, enjoy all the salsa you want. It hardly has any calories in it, not very many. Um, so what counts again? All fresh, frozen, and canned counts towards your goal. Can be cooked or raw. And I will say in tomatoes, the lycopene is better absorbed from a cooked tomato. So like tomatoes that you might make into a spaghetti sauce, or the tomatoes that serves as a sauce on top of pizza. It's just absorbed better. But that doesn't mean we shouldn't have fresh salsa. That's also very good for us. So lots of color choices. Make your plate beautiful, and the more color, natural color on your plate, actually the healthier that plate is. And these are the remaining categories. Beans and peas, I mentioned those at the start. You can count those as vegetables. And this includes kidney beans, lentils, chickpeas, and pinto beans, which we grow in abundance in this region. We serve the world with all of our beans. This category doesn't include green beans like snap beans or green peas. So these are a really great budget-friendly choice right now if you're, concerned about the costs in the grocery store. One of your best bargains, if you go in the beans section, whether it's canned beans, or I'd encourage you to try soaking the beans and cooking beans from the dry form. On our Field to Fork website under the resources, just remember that, NDSU Field to Fork, I have a whole bunch of bean recipes. We have a whole cookbook called Spillin' the Beans. So check that out. It's all free and it's all online. Next up, we have our starchy vegetables, white potatoes, corn, green peas. These are all also good for you. Potatoes are one of the best sources we have of potassium. Remember, potassium helps with our blood pressure. Corn is an excellent source of a yellow pigment, and it's particularly good for our eyes. Macular degeneration is one of the potentially blinding eye diseases, and corn is high in a pigment, lutein, that can help feed our eyes, literally. We have lots of other vegetables besides. Iceberg lettuce does count as a vegetable. I have kind of a bias against iceberg lettuce, but I'll eat it. It's very inexpensive, but unlike some of the other greens, you can buy the various purplish ones, dark green. Those are going to be actually healthier for you. And then any fresh frozen canned or dried fruits and fruit juices that you like will also count toward the goal. Whether that's oranges, orange juice, apples, apple juice, bananas, melons, down to raisins. Those do count. Remember that dried fruit is a more concentrated source of calories. So the serving size typically for raisins is about half of a serving size for a you know, fresh cup of grapes. You only have to eat about half of the raisins. Just remember to brush your teeth after eating dried fruit because it's quite high in sugar and that can stick to your teeth. So we also encourage that. So now I'd like you to go to the chat and I'll ask you a little question. On average, what percentage of adults meet the fruit and vegetable recommendations? What do you think the answer is? I'm seeing all over the board here. Lots of bees. Bees. All right. All right, keep that answer in mind. This isn't a real test. I just want you to think about it. And then second question, what percentage of children meet the fruit and vegetable recommendations? 7, 10, 24, 35, and 45. In extension across the state, wherever we have extension agents available to go into classrooms, we teach lots of kids. And a lot of our nutrition education programs focus on getting more children to eat fruits and vegetables. I will add, if any of you have some time and are interested in volunteer opportunities, I'm sure our agents would help, would love to have extra hands to help them. Okay, well, here are the answers. So about 12% meet food recommendations and 10% meet the vegetable recommendations for adults. That's not so great, is it? It'll be about 11% in all. And for children, it's worse, unfortunately. 7% meet the fruit recommendations, 2% meet the vegetable consumption goals. So whatever you can do, whether that's bringing them into the garden with you, having them help pick out a fruit or vegetable if you happen to have children or nieces, nephews, grandchildren, whatever you can do to make these available to children, because this is where they're launching their life and their health for long term. So we have more work to do, and everybody has a little bit of work to do because we have very much a shortfall of consuming enough fruits and vegetables. And I'd add whole grains as well. So here's your homework. I want you tomorrow, you get the rest of the day off. Tomorrow, I want you to just keep track of any fruits or vegetables that you have for breakfast. Try to list how much it is and like how many cups approximately. If you have a snack, if you have an apple or whatever, lunch and dinner. And check to see if you're meeting that approximately 4.5 cup goal for fruits and vegetables. And I will take any questions at the end. I'm not really looking at the chat right now, so I will get those later. And if your question doesn't get answered, certainly feel free to follow up with me. So I've kind of alluded to this already, but in nutrition, take a cue from nature. Um, I chose a background for myself because I can't wait for spring. I love to plant things and I love to grow vegetables and lots of flowers and so on. And it's actually melting pretty well in Fargo right now. But take a cue from nature. I mentioned that we have a couple of publications. I wrote this several years ago and we keep on keeping it up to date because it remains popular. It's called What Color is Your Food? And we also made a pocket guide, a small pamphlet, I guess, kind of combining all of this information and about 8 recipes. So that's also on our Field to Fork website. And they're both about color and how to incorporate more fruits and vegetables in your diet. So now let's move on. And I'm not a horticulture specialist, but I do like to garden. I've been gardening all my life since I was a little tot. And I found some tips. So if you have never gardened, I hope you might be inspired to do some form of gardening. If you live in the Fargo Moorhead area, we have a multi-garden community garden group called Growing Together. And they're always looking for volunteers to help. They have about 9 gardens, I think. And I'm on the board and we're always, we donate a lot of the produce to food pantries and food bank and that kind of thing. And if people help garden, they get a share of the garden. And I know these kinds of operations occur in communities all across our region. But it's a great way if you've never gardened. People are really into it. They love to garden and they love to teach other people. So, consider what's going on in your community, or you could even start really small. So, first steps, decide what are you going to plant? Um, don't start with a half an acre. that would be too much. Start small. Maybe you just want to have a big pot on your patio or on a front step, and you're going to grow some flowers. And some flowers are edible, believe it or not. Marigolds and nasturtiums are edible, so you can add them to salads or float them on soups, or they just look pretty. Herbs are a good place to start as well. We have a number of herb publications on the Field to Fork website, and we also have the recipes that go along with those. And many of our herb plants can also grow very well indoors. So you could have a basil plant. You just treat it like a house plant. You can't forget to water them. They need some water, and you also don't want to overwater. But herbs are also a good place to start. Right below my window is the preschool for NDSU. And we've done a lot of gardening with young children through the years. And they've grown salsa gardens. So those consist of tomatoes, some onions, some peppers, green peppers, bell peppers. So that's an easy way to get started for yourself. And I'm always amazed because every year we help them at least a little bit with their gardening projects that they do. And the kids love to watch things grow. And what we know about you grow something and you put that effort into it, whether you're an adult or a kid, you're more likely to eat it. So it's a good way to encourage everybody to eat more fresh fruits and vegetables. Then once you've decided what you want to grow, maybe it's a tomato plant, you have to find a garden spot with about 6 hours of sun. And I found this pretty picture on Pixabay. Um, some people, if your backyard or front yard or wherever you are doesn't have great sunlight, put the garden on wheels and you can move it around. I don't know if that one would move very well. That looks very antique. If you have the opportunity to do so, have some soil testing done at a soils lab. And unfortunately, don't believe that our soil testing lab is in service anymore, but there are other places you can have soil testing done. And you can always consult with your local extension agent, wherever you are. Many of them have, all of them have either 4-H, family and community wellness, or agriculture. So they can help you with some resources as well. But know what's in your soil, what you might have to amend. You can also talk to a local garden shop. Next up, what do? Got to clear the ground. And that might mean adding compost. And if you've never composted, that might be something to consider too as a goal. Many of our household scraps, whether it's leaves, well, that's not a household scrap, but would be a good example. Potato peels, fruit peels, or whatever, leftover fruits, that makes great compost. It's like black gold. Leaves, which we might rake up in the fall, that can also be added to a compost bin. And there are lots of places you can order a compost bin for not so much money, or you could make your own compost bin. But that is a great way to feed the soil because soil needs nourishment just like we do. Our next step, we're going to prepare the beds. Yeah, have it nice and loose so that you can put your tomato plants or whatever you want to grow into the ground. Here's my favorite part. Unfortunately, I always buy so many plants that I end up buying more pots because I can't fit all the plants in the spots that I have. But pick plants. We have different categories. Annuals, you have to plant every year, unless you bring them in. And I actually bring in all my geraniums and I keep them going. And I have geraniums that date back to my grandmother, whom I never met because she died in 1940. So I kept on getting slips from people and I've kept them alive for all these years. No longer than I've been alive, they've been keeping going. Another type of plant would be a perennial. These technically will come up every year. They will die eventually, depending on how cold it is and if you protect them a little. But perennials are a great way to, have color throughout the season. It's always fun when they start peeking up in your garden or your flower bed every year. And then pick some vegetables and be a little bit adventuresome. Maybe you want to try growing Brussels sprouts. I remember when we grew Brussels sprouts one year with children at our church garden, and I had never grown Brussels sprouts either. So I thought, what kind of a plant is this? Because it grows a stalk, and then the Brussels sprouts are all along the stalk. So they're really fun to grow, and they're really tasty as well. And then it's time after you've chosen what to plant, and you can start with seeds or you can start with the plants. That's time to plant. And in fact, one of our first speakers, or our first speaker was Don Kinsler. He is our extension agent in Cass County. And I also had Tom Kelb from the Bismarck area do a webinar. And both of those are online now. Don talked about how to start seeds in various containers. Now would be the time to start growing your own little tomato plants. And he had a really great idea about using those little plastic boxes that come with rotisserie chicken, for example. That can be like your own little, almost a terrarium. So that is archived. It's on the Field to Fork site. Very entertaining and educational session. Tom, a couple weeks after Don, talked about um, growing various squash. So this is our 10th year of doing those webinars. We'll have over 100 webinars archived on all sorts of topics. So that's a resource that I certainly share with all of you if you want to learn more from the horticulture experts. So you have your plants, it's time to plant them. You have to be sure that the soil is ready for planting because it takes a while for our soil to warm up. One of the plants that does fairly well in cold and can actually start growing fairly early is kale. And kale is great in salads, and some people even like to dry kale and make kale chips out of it. So that's that. And then the other piece that I think is responsible for killing a lot of house plants is either too much water or not enough water. I have about 12 plants in my office and they've fared well. They're all alive, which is great. When you're growing seedlings, you do want to water them nearly every day. You don't want them to dry out. They're so tender they could die. So you can get a water tester, a little water meter, and that will tell you if it's damp enough. Or you can just put your finger in and see if it's somewhat damp. You put your finger in and test it yourself. But don't overwater, don't underwater. And you also, when it comes time to watering your plants out in the garden, it's better to water from the base of the plant than watering overhead because watering overhead can cause some diseases to appear like mildew and so on. So in our gardens, we have little hoses with holes in them that we kind of spread around the garden. It's my husband's project, not mine. And it works really well. So you're not getting that disease spread. Then you can add some mulch. And this is what they do in the community gardens around Fargo. They do mulch. Some of the cities will allow you to pick up mulch, or you can also make your own. And then you need to maintain. So you can see after you've done all this work from the seedlings to planting to maintaining, this is why people eat a lot of fruits and vegetables if they grow them. So remove the dead parts of the plant and any insects. If you are gardening organically, then there are only certain chemicals that qualify as organic, or you can completely leave off the chemicals, but you do want to maintain those plants. It's a labor of love to keep these going. And I have a question for you. We'll go back to the chat. So that's just a little bit a taste of gardening. What fruits and vegetables do you think are linked with the most outbreaks of foodborne illness? And lettuce and onion, romaine, spinach. Very good. Let's see what the answer is. This is based on years of monitoring. And this is the best data I could find. It actually is a little old, but I think it would still hold true. If you said leafy greens, did anyone say sprouts? Those two are responsible for the most outbreaks. And what is an outbreak? That means that at least two people have gotten sickened from the same food. So sprouts and leafy greens. I'm going to a food safety conference next week, and usually someone asks the speaker, what's one food that you'd be really leery about eating? And most of the time they say sprouts, because the bacteria like salmonella can be on the outside and it could be on the inside. So be a little cautious with sprouts. Leafy greens, we've certainly seen a lot of outbreaks associated with those. I think they have it under control now. When you buy leafy greens in a bag and it says triple rinsed, you don't have to rewash that. In fact, they caution against rewashing leafy greens because we could contaminate that product. So eat more leafy greens. The ones in the bags, right now, they're totally safe until we hear a recall. But I'm not too worried about it. I just had bagged greens last night. What are some other foods? Well, melons can be an issue. That's why it's important to use a little kitchen scrubby brush to thoroughly wash any melons before you cut them. The idea there is that anything on the outside can be transferred to the inside. So, treat watermelon, cantaloupe, honeydew, whatever you like. Um, Eat it, it's great for you, but make sure that you're washing the outside. No soap. If you want to scrub it with a little baking soda, that certainly won't hurt you. Do we need to use those commercial produce rinses? Probably not. Um, Plain water is considered fine. Tomatoes, berries, herbs, cucumbers, so on up the line. All of these have been linked with outbreaks, but don't be afraid. Um, you know what you're going to do if you're going to grow any of these things. You're going to be careful to keep any pets out of your garden. We ended up building boxes in our backyard that our dachshunds with their little short legs couldn't get into the gardens, or the rabbits couldn't get in there either. So you do want to exclude animals. And if you have other birds coming in, you can always put, a fine netting over the top just to keep, their waste product not on your vegetables. So a few tips. I do have a fight back for bacteria handout on our website, but check for damage, bruises, cut that away. Make sure your utensils are clean, your knives, scissors, whatever you're using. And you also want in your grocery cart to keep fresh fruits and vegetables separate from contaminants, such as maybe a package of meat that usually they don't have blood on the outside, but sometimes there can be leakage. So put the meat, poultry, whatever, in a separate plastic bag in a separate area of your cart. Then I have some rules that we commonly use for consumers. We use the 2-hour rule, and that means to chill, cut, peeled, or cooked fresh fruits and vegetables within 2 hours. So get 2 hours from the time that you prepare it. If you're going to serve it, you could put it on ice or get it in the refrigerator if at all possible, covered and so on, because there's no sterile food. Once it's open and you're working with it, you do need to protect it. And we're not going to get sick every time we have some kind of contaminant. It needs to reach a certain level. And if you are going to have fresh fruits and vegetables and it's touched any meat juice and it won't be cooked, then you have to throw that away or cook those fruits and vegetables. If you cook it, you'll be okay. You'll kill any organisms present. So how do you entice children who are selective? Maybe you have children, grandchildren, nieces, nephews. Probably most important for adults to do is set a good example. We don't want to force the issue with kids or it becomes a power struggle. It does take up to 12 times for the kids to get the opportunity to taste the fruit or vegetable before they might actually accept it. And if you won't let them leave the table till they eat the food, guess what? They probably will sit at the table all night. You don't want to make food a power struggle. And maybe even a better one is encourage kids to help with gardening, selecting at the grocery store, preparing in the kitchen. Other parenting experts have suggested that you offer the less familiar food. Maybe you're bringing home a star fruit or a mango with some familiar food, something they really like. And try some different preparation methods. We have a whole publication about how to grill different fruits and vegetables. Even goes to the point of how big should you cut the pieces? How long should you grill them? It's called Grill Something Different, I think is the name I put on it. And then for anyone, mealtime is pleasant. Make it a good time to visit. We also know from a lot of research that eating meals as a family is particularly helpful. So now let's prepare the food. I'm doing okay on time. Um, we have a number of publications that talk about creative ways to include more fruits and vegetables. You can click through the handouts. I believe I sent the website link. There's a whole bunch of things on that site, probably hundreds. There's a pocket guide to fruits and vegetables. There's a growing together cookbook that we worked on a few years ago. My students and I went out and all the gardeners came in and they rated the recipes and only the ones they liked ended up in the cookbook. And then we have a Facebook site as well where we regularly share. So this is a taste of one of the publications in case, I have all these apples, what can I do with them? So this publication just kind of goes through in great, many details on different ways to eat different fruits and vegetables. So you can see slicing the apples into 1/4-inch slices, you can brush with butter or oil and grill until they're tender the way you like them. You can also dry. And we have a whole bunch of publications about how to dry fruits and vegetables and meats. Here's a sample of bell peppers. You know, I hope you've all eaten bell peppers. They're among our very best sources of vitamin C. In fact, red bell peppers are probably nearly at the top of the list. So again, sauteing, grilling, eating fresh, all good ways. And, you know, going down the line, this goes from A to Z, basically. I'm not going to go through and I'm going to stop at broccoli, but these are many different ways that we can enjoy all of these vegetables, maybe in slightly different ways. My current dietetic intern is working on a spice pairing guide, like what can you add this spice to? Because most of us probably have a whole cupboard full of spices and we only use them for certain recipes. And actually you can use them in many ways. So again, we have the Field to Fork website, the Pocket Guide, the Growing Together cookbook, and the Facebook site. So I'm still doing okay on time. Tips for food preservation. I just have a few because this is its own 3-day workshop. So I'm just going to have about 3-4 slides. Best advice, use research tested recipes for canning. Don't necessarily trust what you find on Pinterest or on some Facebook sites or Instagram. They're not necessarily based on science and they're not necessarily safe. Keep in mind that all vegetables must be pressure canned, not water bath canned, not made in a dishwasher. I've seen all kinds of things. So you do have to think like a scientist if you're going to preserve foods. And again, we have all of this information for you free of charge. It's all based on research from the National Center for Home Food Preservation and other sources. So go to credible sources, Ball, university sites, and so on. So some of the easiest ways to get started are freezing and making jams and jellies. So if you've never preserved food before, I think everybody already freezes foods, but I'm talking about taking your homegrown foods and blanching them and freezing them. Drying is also very easy. You can make your own snacks. Canning is more advanced, but it's all possible. And there are 2 types. And in fact, our upcoming Field to Fork webinar in a couple of weeks, well, I'm doing salsa tomorrow, but someone will be doing pickling and someone will be doing something on what equipment you need to start canning. So if you haven't signed up, it's free. Join us. Some other pieces that I hope that people will think about and do. If you grow a lot of tomatoes and you want to can them, keep in mind that you need to acidify tomatoes, and that's with bottled lemon juice or citric acid. During the pandemic, we ran into a lot of issues with people reusing canning lids that weren't meant to be reused. So if you're using like ball lids with the rings around them, those are one time. There are some lids that claim to be able to be used multiple times. You just have to follow that manufacturer's guide and not sometimes they fail and all that work is gone. So use the good equipment, good supplies. If you decide to pickle, which has become very popular, you're looking for 5% acetic acid. Acetic acid is the acid in vinegar that causes the pickling and the safety to occur. So I do want to let you know about this online courses. We have one called Nourish, and it takes about 3 months, or you have 3 months to do the 7 modules, about 30 minutes each. You can register, just Google NDSU Extension and look for Nourish. And these are some of the topics in our current lineup. So we have immune system. We even did one on pets and health, cooking for one or two, well-being, medications. Nutrition touches many areas of life. We do have a food preservation course as well. There's still time if you want to sign up, March 15th, and the course ends May 15th. So you will be provided with the direct links if you want to sign up. No cost, but if you do sign up, please finish the course because these are grants and I have to report on them. So that would help me too. And I hope this will all help you. We've had really good feedback. So that's our non-discrimination statement. And I'm happy to answer any questions.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. I am going to just quick share my slide here where I have been kind of loading some questions in. Uh, Let me get that. All right. So we've had a few come in. And some of these, as I thought about them, I'm like, you know what? I was curious about that too.
Oh no.
So the one of them is as far as potatoes, they are usually cooked in water and boiled. Um, and this person has been using petite red potatoes. What is the best way to cook them? And also, when potatoes are boiled, does the potassium get leached out into the boiling water? Are the potatoes even good for you after they are cooked in water? And I kind of had that same question. So,
Hmm. Yes, potatoes will retain their potassium. You know, there could be a little bit of loss, but eat more and eat the skins. If you're having little red potatoes, anthocyanins in the potatoes, remember, try to eat the skins as much as you can. And one of our speakers last year is the potato breeder at NDSU, and she talked all about potatoes. So if you go back to the archives, you can hear directly from the person that is the expert in the whole area on potatoes. So yes, they still have potassium.
the next one is, what do you do for high potassium?
If you're supposed to reduce the potassium in your diet, I'm guessing
Maybe.
that means um, probably work with a dietitian
Mhm.
because many of the you'd have to limit to some degree the potassium sources that you're taking in. And there are lists of foods that have potassium, so you would, I guess, best advice would be to work with a health professional to make sure that you're not overdoing the potassium.
Thank you. And then another one that came in is, can shredded paper count as mulch?
I've seen shredded newspaper used as mulch, I guess. You know, paper is going to be lighter. It might blow out of your garden. So, but I have seen it, and paper, like newspaper, can also be composted, and then it will break down, and you could use that as well. So you can use compost or mulch in your garden, and paper is one of what we call the browns. There's browns and greens. So we do have a compost guide as well on the NDSU site. So please use your resources.
Wonderful. And then another person had a comment, and maybe this applies to an apple tree outside. And you talked about just rinsing things with water was good enough. And she asked, does washing bird poop off apples get them clean enough to eat?
Oh, if they have bird poop on them, I'd probably peel them after I wash them. In fact, we teach a course called the Food Safety Modernization Act, Produce Safety Rule, which if you are into growing for selling, you might want to take that course. We offer it through the ag department. But if technically, if produce like apples falls on the ground, it's called dropped produce. And technically, they're not supposed to sell those. So I would, my apples tend typically fall out of the tree. So I would just wash them really well, use a scrub brush if necessary, and peel them, because it's pretty hard to get the bird waste off of them.
Sure. Okay. And then for gardens, when, if you're going to do any fertilizing in like your garden beds, what would you recommend putting in there? Are they like the pellets or like what are your thoughts on that?
Hmm. I think any of them are fine as long as you follow the rules on the box or the container. You don't want to over fertilize. And I mean, that I would go to the manufacturer list and they'll tell you how much to dilute it or how much of, say, the pellets to use, per square foot or whatever it happens to be. So follow the rules on the
Okay.
package.
And do you have any preferences on organic seeds or just regular seeds and brands for planting?
And remember now, I'm not the hort specialist.
I know.
I am Dr. Garden, but I'm not the hort specialist. Um, I don't have any preferences. You will pay more money for the organic. Both will grow well. And as I work with all our horticulture specialists, I noticed that they aren't handing out organic seeds because I just went to a meeting the other day and I got 10 packets of seeds and they were regular seeds. So either is safe. There are lots and lots of regulations on, you know, conventional versus organic. I don't have a certain one that I like.
Okay. Well, and when is you talked about the spice guide. When is that coming out, did you say? That sounds really interesting.
Well, I just saw the first draft of it this morning, so it'll be
Oh,
a while.
okay.
But
That sounds so cool.
so certainly watch for that. We also do some videos, and we recently, if you like garlic, we have 4 or 5 how to use garlic, how to prepare it, and so on. And that is on our website, on the Field to Fork site as well. So we have a big site which I popped into the chat, which is the ag.ndsu.edu/food. And that leads to all these other pieces I've been talking about. So if you scroll down on that page at the bottom, you'll see where to register for Field to Fork, our food preservation course, the Nourish course. If you want to learn more about eating for, your brain or your eyes, we have 14 modules in all. We do them 7 at a time.
Wonderful. And yes, we will be sending out the links to all of these resources in the follow-up email. One more question just came in about raspberry plants. Um, they want to plant some raspberry plants, but don't want them to take over the yard, which I grew up with raspberry plants and they do take over the yard, it seems like. Will they grow in pots and any ideas?
Now, I know that Esther McGinnis, she's one of our hort specialists, I believe she has a raspberry publication on our site.
Oh, okay.
And I can maybe follow up with you and you could, post the horticulture information as well. I grew up with raspberries. We just had to keep on packing them out, trying to confine
Uh-huh.
them to one area along the edge of our garden. So you got to be kind of brutal, or there's a lot of things that will take over, like mint and some of the herbs. They like to self seed and spread all over. So you just have to keep pruning them out.
Yeah, no kidding. All right. Well, we are almost at time. Thank you so much for all the questions that came in. This was wonderful. Um, Let me just move to my next slide. So thank you again, Julie, for being here and presenting on such important information. To stay connected with Foundation for Healthy North Dakota, you can follow Healthy NODAC on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and Foundation for Healthy North Dakota on LinkedIn. Also, to join the coalition, you can visit the link to stay aware of future updates and future webinars. And then there is a QR code to take for the survey, the evaluation survey. And like I said, we will be sending out all the resources in the follow-up recorded webinar. So really appreciate everyone being here today and enjoy the rest of your day.
And I just popped in my little survey in the chat. That's just for me specifically, so it's separate from the foundation survey. So if you wouldn't mind taking that, I'd appreciate it.
Yes, yes, and it was up there at the beginning, but it might have gotten kind of buried in all of the wonderful engagement we had, and we can also put that within our follow-up email too. So,
Great. Thank you. Thanks so much,
awesome.
everybody. And
Thank
I
you.
hope you find something helpful on our site.
Have a good one, everyone.